All right, let's jump right in. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely gripping geopolitical mystery. We're looking at a moment in recent history where two massive global priorities literally collided head-on. And, well, only one walked away intact.
So, what exactly happens when international justice collides with global security? It's a massive question. Think about it. The highest criminal court in the world, backed by the most powerful nations on Earth, suddenly watches its landmark case just completely unravel. It is incredibly rare for a global accountability mechanism with this much momentum to just stall out and fail, but it did. And we're going to look at exactly how and why that happened.
It's a wild paradox, really. Back in 2010, the ICC indicted Kenya's future leaders for crimes against humanity. But by 2016, those cases were completely dead. The mechanics of global security, specifically the global war on terror, didn't just change military strategy. It fundamentally rewired international justice. Two men indicted for horrific crimes essentially defeated the highest international court, and the rest of the world kind of just let it happen.
Section 1. Justice on Trial. To really understand this clash between legal accountability and political survival, we have to look closely at the court itself. According to an amazing investigation by Karen Allen in Defense Strategic Communications, the ICC has a pretty major structural vulnerability. It completely relies on state cooperation. The court doesn't have its own police force, right? It relies entirely on the very countries it's investigating to execute arrest warrants, hand over sensitive evidence, and physically protect witnesses. Now imagine you're trying to prosecute sitting leaders who literally control that specific state apparatus. That lack of an independent enforcement arm quickly becomes a fatal flaw.
Section 2. The post-election violence. 1,100. That is the tragic number of people killed during the 2007 and 2008 post-election violence in Kenya. This wasn't just some random inquiry. It was born out of a profound national tragedy. Beyond the catastrophic loss of life, hundreds of thousands of people were severely displaced from their homes, creating just an immense humanitarian crisis. When domestic attempts to set up a special tribunal failed to get off the ground, the names of the key suspects were actually handed over in a sealed envelope to the ICC. The demand for accountability at that moment, both domestically and internationally, was absolutely massive.
But watch how rapidly the narrative shifts from justice to terror. We see the violence ravaging the country in 2007 and 2008, with the ICC formally stepping in to open investigations by 2010. But then, the timeline fractures. In 2011, Kenya launches an invasion into Somalia to fight the al-Qaeda affiliate al-Shabaab. Suddenly, Kenya is a frontline state in the war on terror. Then comes the shock of 2013. The two main accused men, Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto, form a political alliance and actually win the presidential election. Men actively on trial for crimes against humanity had just won the highest office in the land. And that very same year, a horrific terror attack strikes Kenya. The entire geopolitical board literally flipped in just a few short years.
Section 3. Mastering Strategic Communications.
As the geopolitical stakes shifted, the accused leaders deployed a brilliant, albeit controversial, defense strategy to fight the court. According to Dr. Neville Bolt, strategic communications isn't just standard PR. It's not just putting out a press release. Think of it like deploying every single weapon in a nation's diplomatic arsenal to alter reality. It is a holistic projection of political survival aimed at changing targeted audiences' attitudes, using diplomacy, media, regional alliances, and public statements to completely reshape how the entire world views a specific problem.
And Kenyan elites mobilized this brilliantly. They entirely flipped the script on the international community. First, they branded the ICC as a neo-colonial, anti-African threat, framing it as white man's justice, unfairly targeting the continent. Then, they utilized the UN Security Council as this secular pulpit. Specifically, they invoked Article 16 of the Rome Statute, which basically allows the Security Council to defer ICC investigations if they threaten international peace. They took their personal legal problems and masterfully transformed them into a global debate about sovereignty. They successfully conflated international justice with regional insecurity, arguing that if they were removed from power, the whole region would fall to terrorists.
Section 4. The Terror Trump Card.
This all builds to a critical turning point in 2013, where global terrorism inadvertently provided a massive diplomatic shield for the accused. After the horrifying Westgate Mall attack in Nairobi, Kenyan leaders aggressively pivoted their messaging. They reminded Western powers that prosecuting them would destabilize the very government fighting al-Qaeda's affiliate. I mean, the optics were incredible. William Ruto even gave press interviews claiming his required presence at the ICC was specifically linked to the tragedy. He was essentially telling the world, hey, you need me at home to fight terrorists, not sitting in a courtroom thousands of miles away.
So, put yourself in the shoes of a Western diplomat analyzing this situation for a second. This is the ultimate geopolitical nightmare. Do you prioritize punishing past crimes, or do you prioritize preventing future terror attacks? Look at Kenya's leverage. They are the essential geopolitical anchor state in a highly volatile Horn of Africa. They provide vital, on-the-ground intelligence and military partnership for both the U.S. and the U.K. By 2016, the U.S. was pumping $120 million into Kenyan counterterrorism efforts. Western powers very quickly realized that isolating the Kenyan leadership over the ICC might severely compromise their own national security interests.
Section 5. Pragmatism over legalism.
We are looking at a literal head-on collision between two distinct worldviews here: legalism versus pragmatism. Legalism is the moral, rule-following pursuit of justice and accountability, dictating that the rules apply no matter what, even if the accused is a sitting president. Pragmatism, on the other hand, is the consequentialist prioritizing of political realities, state survival, and global security. Pragmatism says, look, we simply cannot risk the collapse of a vital anti-terror partner just to satisfy a court mandate. Over time, as the terror threat grew, international support for the strict legalism of the ICC just evaporated, and Western powers quietly backed away to maintain their vital security partnership. Former UN Deputy Secretary General Lord Mark Malloch Brown summarized this reality perfectly when he pointed out that the ICC is legalism, sure, but it has to operate in a highly political environment. The court just wasn't designed to pursue cases against people who still control the levers of government. The law might be blind, but the political environment around it is wide awake and hyper-focused on survival.
But we really must ground this high-level geopolitical chessboard back to the human cost. While these diplomatic maneuvers played out in New York and The Hague, real victims were left with nothing. For the people who lost their families, their homes, and their livelihoods during that 2007 and 2008 violence, the failure of the court wasn't just a fascinating study in international relations, it was a deeply demoralizing denial of the accountability they were explicitly promised. Even the chief prosecutor at the time, Fatou Bensouda, lamented that witness intimidation and a severe lack of state cooperation ultimately stalled the pursuit of justice. The Kenyan government, now led by the very men on trial, systematically starved the court. They refused to hand over critical documents, ignored subpoenas, and dragged their feet on every single procedural request. By the time the cases were formally terminated, witnesses had vanished, recanted, or allegedly been bribed. The structural weaknesses of the ICC were just laid bare for the entire world to see.
To wrap up our explainer today, I want to leave you with a pretty provocative thought about the modern compromises we make between global peace and historical accountability. When forced to choose between addressing the atrocities of the past and preventing the terror of tomorrow, the international community quietly chose the latter. It's a sobering reality about how power and security truly operate on the global stage. Thank you so much for joining me, and keep questioning what you see.